There comes a moment, often quietly, when life feels like we've not been living longer, feels like it fits. Not because we have failed, but because we have outgrown it. Today, we are talking about midlife reinvention, not as a crisis, but as an invitation to choose yourself with honesty, courage, and care. Welcome to Inner Peace Better Health, where we explore the deep connection between emotional clarity, life transition, and inner well being. I am Nazish, and today I am joined by Tracy Smith, memoirist, solo traveler, and author of The Purpose of Getting Lost. After years of people pleasing and personal loss and feeling like she didn't quite belong, Tracy made a bold choice in midlife, booking a one-way ticket that becomes a journey back to herself. Today, we are exploring courage, belonging, and what it truly means to choose yourself. So, welcome to the show, Tracy.
Thank you. I'm so excited for you to have me here.
Perfect. So, before the travel and the transformations, I am curious, what was the quiet feeling inside that told you something in your life needed to change?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, you- before I started traveling for 20 odd years or so, however many years, I was raising children. And, you get really wrapped up in taking care of kids. And along the way, even when you want to make choices for yourself, you hear yourself all the time just saying, "Well, I can't, right? I can't. I have something else to take care of." And it's not always kids. It could have been kids, it could have been work, it could have been a dissertation at some point. It's something. There's always somebody who needs something from you. And I I had kind of forgotten that I wanted to travel, and one night I was out at a restaurant with my friends, and, they had said, "We're going to Ireland." And before I even had a chance to really think about what I was saying, I was like, "I wanna go." But the moment of me saying I want to go was not so impressive, would not have been that impressive by itself, but those same friends, just a few years before, I actually had booked a trip with them and I had canceled it. My son had was running in a track meet, and so I was supposed to go to Mexico with them, and I ended up canceling so I could go to his track meet. So this time with this trip, I just knew I had to go. There was just some part of me that said, Tracy, you just have to do this." And I think I might have been inclined to cancel again. I mean, my youngest son at this point now is a junior in high school, and maybe I would have canceled, but I thought about it and I was like, no, I need to do this and I need to do this for myself. So then I started kind of adding on to that trip because it was a group trip and I added on to that group trip. And the more I added on to it, the more excited I got about it. And by the time I was, just a few days out of leaving for that trip, and actually really by the summer, when I had did the first add on, I knew that I couldn't cancel. I just knew that like I was meant to go on this trip, and at the time, I had just no idea what it would do for me, but it was an absolutely life-changing decision. It just I can't explain it any other way other than it was completely life-changing.
Oh, that sounds absolutely beautiful. Even listening to it makes me feel so happy about it. So, there's a belief that reinvention at midlife is impulsive or selfish. From your experience, what do people misunderstand about making big changes later in life?
So, I don't know if I really think about that I reinvented my life. Like, I don't I yeah, I don't think I think about it like that. What what I did instead was I decided to instead start saying yes to myself, right? So, like, you can reinvention is basically taking the old life you have and saying that's not part of who I am anymore, right? That's what reinvention is. But I didn't do that. I said instead, I'm still going to have this old life. I have these children, I have a dog, I have a job, I have all these things, but I'm also going to learn how to start saying yes to myself. And like, so a couple of good examples about that are, and this is a really extreme example, but it's a good representation of how my mind was working as I was doing this. About a year and a half ago, I was in Vietnam and I was going to be gone for a month. And I was it was the middle of a hurricane Yagi. They don't call him Typhoon Yagi over there. And my daughter called me. It was the middle of the day for Vietnam. It was the middle of the night for her. And my daughter texted me and says, "Mom, can you talk?" And of course, I was talking to somebody else, but I stopped my conversation and I got right on this call with her. And she had a problem. She needed help. And I'm 12 hours away from her. And in that moment, I said, if my daughter needs me to fly home to be with her to help her through this problem, I will fly home. I will be there with her. Or I can also try to help her from here. And so that's why I say it wasn't about reinvention. It was about just saying, I just chose to still go to Vietnam. My daughter is still there. My daughter still needs me. And she didn't end up needing me to come home. I was able to do some stuff from where I was at in Vietnam. I remember sitting in this kind of scrubby hotel with not great Wi Fi. And I was helping her do what needed to be done. So I still chose myself, but I still helped my daughter, and that's why I think that that's been the most important part about all this is I've learned to say yes to myself. I just sometimes they're first. I was supposed to go Guatemala for Christmas. My daughter and my son wanted to hang out for New Year's, and they wanted to hang out with me instead. And so rather than go to Guatemala, I canceled that and I ended up hanging out with them. It doesn't mean that I didn't put myself first. It just means that in that moment, I've chosen them, but I'm still putting myself first because I'm taking pleasure in being with them. And I'll go to Guatemala some other day. I'll go maybe next month or sometime this summer, but I'll get there. It just meant in that moment I chose them. Does that make sense?
It does make a lot of sense, and I really appreciate you sharing that. It takes honesty to speak from lived experiences, and it truly adds such beautiful depth to this conversation. And
Agree.
yeah, so let's just so before you choose yourself, how did this show up in everyday life, like emotionally, physically, or in sense of belonging?
Yeah, so before I was choosing myself and the best way for me to think about how it felt for me was is to give you examples. Is I remember a couple well, maybe about 7 years before I started traveling, and, I was newly divorced, so maybe I'd been divorced for about a year, maybe not quite 2 years at this point, and, I had been dating somebody, and I had been meeting some friends, and, my children were school-age kids, and the relationship was going right along. But I remember we went to this trip and we went to Nashville and we were going to see this concert. And so every trip I made, anything I did when I first got divorced and my kids were still school age, everything had to be around would my ex-husband be available to take care of the kids, right? Or did the kids, and more importantly, did the kids not have anything going on? That was every decision I made. I could not say yes to anything without knowing answers to those two things. And so, I found I had a free weekend, so we wanted to go to Nashville for a concert. There were 4 of us that were going down there, and we booked our tickets, and the concert was on a Thursday night, so we went down on Thursday morning, and, we had a great time on Thursday morning. Well, my son, had just found out on Friday that he was going to be racing in a race on Saturday, and it was like a regional race or something like that. I don't even really remember totally the details of it, but it was my oldest son, and, I told my friends, I said, "I have to go back." Like, we were supposed to be in Nashville for the whole weekend, right? Like, I was in Nashville for the whole weekend, and I said to them, I have to go back. I am not missing my son's race. And I don't even care if this is like, it was maybe a 10, 15-minute race. I don't know. He's in high school, it's cross country, 3 miles. It's probably 15 minutes. And I gave up the rest of that weekend to go back and be with my son. But here's the thing, I didn't just give up a weekend in Nashville with friends. So I was there on Thursday. I went home on Friday to go to this race. Ultimately, that relationship and those friendships disintegrated. They were completely like within, I don't know, probably 6 months to a year, all of them had ended because they started thinking of me as the person who was, I don't know, like, maybe I wasn't as fun as they were, and so, like, the feelings that I would have inside me is, "I'm not good enough because I'm choosing, my kids first," or, "I'm not good enough because I'm putting all these other things first." And for me, it was really hard because, like, I started to feel like I didn't belong no matter where I went because I was making these decisions to put everybody else first. Um, now that's completely different because now I decide, well, I'm choosing myself. I'm still putting my kids first, but I'm choosing myself. And maybe I'm not that fun person and maybe I'll still cancel trips to in order to be with my kids, but at least I don't have like that pit in my stomach that would be sitting there. It would be like a knot just sitting there worried about justifying to the people that I was hanging out with, that I was being around, of what they would think of me because I was choosing to put the kids first or because I wasn't choosing myself first. So those friendships, they'll come and go. And it was really hard. And, I can't see that particular group of friends even to this day because it really, really hurts me when I think about when I think about that relationship and the reasons why I wasn't good enough for them. But then I think about who I am today and I'm so much happier with who I am today and how I choose myself alongside my kids rather than I don't put my kids in front of me anymore. I just choose them on the same highway. We're on the same highway now. And before we weren't. I was on a side road somewhere and they were on the highway. And yeah, it's definitely really, really different. It's very, very different.
Absolutely. And it is absolutely amazing. You know, that feeling of being present everywhere, but at home nowhere really lands with us.
Yeah, sometimes like, um, you know, it's really hard to for some people, for me, it's really hard for me. I'll speak definitely it's really hard for me. It's really hard also to be around people all the time. And you're just trying to do everything so that you can fit in with whatever group it is that you're with. And but in the back of your head, you're like, I don't really fit in with this group, right? Like this isn't who I am or this isn't the space I should be in, but you're trying so hard to make it work because you want to find somebody to fit in. And I have Facebook posts. I can look back at some Facebook posts from, I don't know, like maybe I'll say 2018 or maybe even 2019. And I had another group of friends, a very similar group of friends as that other group, right? And I have these friends and I'm like, and these Facebook posts will be like, oh, when you find your tribe and these people really understand you, there's no better feeling in the world. But then when you find out, like when the friendship ends, you're like, were they really my tribe or were they just pretending or was I just pretending that they were my tribe? And I think I've kind of have come to the realization that maybe I was the one pretending that they were my tribe. It wasn't them, but maybe it was me. And that's a real it's a real awakening to say, I don't have to pretend anymore to be a part of a tribe. I'm just coming in as me. And so now that's what I've done definitely over the last 5 years, but really since I started traveling in 2022, I've said, this is who I am. You either take me or leave me, but I will not apologize to anybody, not even my children. I will not apologize for being me anymore.
That's just so wonderful and that is so powerful, to be really honest. So reinvention isn't a straight line. When doubt and loneliness or second guessing shows up, what helps you stay rooted in your choice?
Um, yeah, so I book a trip. No, I don't always book a trip. I think sometimes, I try to think to either times where maybe I was having a really good experience and I try to rethink how that felt. Sometimes, I come to work and, I really would rather be somewhere else, right? I'd rather be on the road. I'd rather be exploring in a Riyadh and, or in the Medina in Morocco, or I'd rather be in Vietnam in Sapa doing, hiking through the jungle. But I think sometimes, that's not a luxury. I can't do that full time right now. So instead, what I have to do is I have to sometimes recreate that feeling, or you I'll try to think through ahead to like a trip that I might have coming up, to say, okay, like let's think about that and know that I will have that feeling. So that'll carry me over. Sometimes, sometimes you just have to let that feeling in, right? You just have to let it in and you have to own it. And then you you let it be there. And then maybe you it doesn't just go away on its own, but you accept it, right? You accept this feeling that's sitting inside of you to be like, God, this was such a bad day at work, or man, I really would rather be doing this instead. And I own it. And then I say, but okay, Tracy, you got to move on. You can't you can't sit and wallow in that. You can't think, you can't just let it. Look, there have been times where as an overthinker, I have sat through a horrible day at work, and I've let it consume my entire night. I That's happened. But then, you go to bed and you wake up the next morning and maybe there's a great text message that somebody has sent you. Or maybe you read something, or I don't know, maybe just somebody says hello to you. And you're just and it puts a smile on your face, and it completely changes your day. And you're no longer thinking about, "Oh, I had that bad day at work yesterday." You're just thinking about, "Wow, okay, it's a new day, and maybe I get to plan a new adventure today, or maybe I'm getting ready to go on a new adventure, so let's count that down." Or maybe you just call somebody that you love and they talk you through it. Because that has to happen too, right? You can't always just count on yourself to get it through. Sometimes you have to count on the people that you know are in your court to get you through those days. And then you start over. And then the next day comes, It just how it goes.
Absolutely. And so this feeling of belonging becomes something you cultivate within, not something you waited to be granted.
Yeah, I don't like, I think where with this feeling of belonging, what I did, and for me, so much of this kinda happened in hindsight, right? Like, I didn't realize it was happening, right? So, as I'm on all these trips, and I don't think it really until I sat down and started to look through like, started to think about this book, that I realized it was there, that I had been doing it. I don't think I knew that. And all of a sudden I start writing these stories and I'm like, it was there all along, right? It is. It's inside of you and you just have to be open to a revised definition of what it was, right? So at some point in time before I started traveling, I was seeking belonging in those local friendships, right? In my neighborhood friendships in Chicago. I was seeking belonging with the people that I worked with. I was seeking belonging maybe with my family, then my siblings or whomever, extended family. So that's where I was kind of looking in relationships, definitely, like, in romantic relationships. That's where I was looking for it. And then when I sat down and wrote the book, I realized I didn't need to find belonging with those people anymore because I found it in all like, I accepted it. I was open to it in all these other little ways, like the random stranger at a bar, the person like, watching, this old couple on a train making anchovies and egg sandwiches and starting to ask them about their anchovy and egg sandwich. It was a really unique combination. Um, and so you start to realize that, like, it's really about you and you create it. Other people can't create belonging for you. You create it for yourself. And then you start to accept it in these really small ways, and they become so much more meaningful. So now I don't have to look for belonging in romantic relationships, and I don't have to look for belonging even at my work, because I know that when I go on a trip somewhere, even if it's fleeting, I know I'm gonna find the belonging there. And then it just kind of carries me over until maybe the next trip or until the next now I'm finding belonging locally, right? Like I find it at this local pizza place I go to go watch the football games. So now I'm finding it there. So I'm you start to realize it's in these small spaces that maybe you didn't think it was there before.
Absolutely. And so, if so, dear listeners, if you stopped asking who you should be at this stage of life, who might you discover you already are? Midlife reinvention isn't about becoming someone new. It's about coming home to yourself with courage and care. So,
Mhm.
Tracy, where can listeners find your book, The Purpose of Getting Lost, and connect with you to know more about your work?
Sure, there's 2 great places, and, so they'll be able to find out about my book at tracysmithauthor.com, and so what they'll also find there is my travel log and, my monthly moments newsletter, which I've started putting out every month. So that's where they can find out more about the book, that's where they'll be able to see these great trips that I go on, and a lot of, like, the travel log stuff, I'm not writing about, like, really, like, travel log, like, go here, do this, do that. I'm writing more about these really great experiences that I'm having and where I'm finding belonging as I'm going. The second place where I would really, really, tell them to go is they should go over to my Substack, because I've recently have been putting articles up there, essays, and I write daily on there as well. And what I'm doing in those essays is I'm really pulling out those really small moments, right, where I'm finding belonging. For instance, talking about that pizza place here in DC, right? So I wrote an essay and published it yesterday or Sunday about going to watch the football game at this local pizza place and how I've kind of have found belonging in the anonymity of nobody knowing me. And and so I would say they should definitely go over to my Substack, which is also Tracy Travels Everywhere, and or Tracy Smith, they'll be able to find it as well.
Wonderful. I will make sure to include all these details into the show notes. And this conversation has been so meaningful with you. And I am so grateful that you shared your time and such beautiful experiences and insights with us. So, thank you so much, Tracy. And thank you so much for joining us on Inner Peace, Better Health. And if today's conversation stirred something in you, trust that it's there for a reason. Until next time, move gently, listen deeply, and remember that choosing yourself is a powerful act of healing.